So today's daf yomi is Gittin73. We're going to start on the bottom of 72b at the two dots around 10 lines from the bottom. Mara says that if a person says, this is your gift from today, in making holy zeh, if I die from this illness, the Amad V'halach B'shuk, and then he got better and he walked in the marketplace and then he got sick and died, we evaluate him to see if he died as a result of this first illness, then it's a get. But otherwise, since it's from a different illness, it's not a get. So Amar Rav Huna comes along and teaches us the Chiddush that Gito Kamatanaso, that his get is like a gift. What does that mean? Mamatanaso in Amad, just like his gift, if he got better, of course, there. Then we're going to say if he gave a gift while he was a shlivmara, while he was sick and he thought he was going to die, just like there, if he gets better, the gift is returned. Avgito and Amar there. So too, if he gives a get because he thinks he's going to die, and then he gets better, his get is canceled. Magito, and secondly, just like his get, Afagav will parish. Since as long as he just says write it, even if he doesn't say give it. So since he says to write it, even though he doesn't say give it, it's going to be a valid get. So to his gift, as long as he says give it, even though he doesn't do a formal opinion, a formal method of transaction with the person who's acquiring it, it's still going to be considered a gift. So the Gemara challenges Rav Huna's statement. Yagito Kamatan also from our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says, this is your gift from today. If you die from this illness, and then he goes in the marketplace and he gets sick and he dies. We evaluate him in Machmas Mace, again. If he died from the first illness, it's a get. Then Rav ain't a get, but otherwise it's not a get. Now, if you want to say in Amad Closer, if you want to say if he gets better, the get is recanted, then why do we need to evaluate him which illness he's dying from? Haray Amad, once he gets better, the get is recanted. If you want to say the get is like the Shlimara, and once he's able to walk along, the get should be canceled. So Gemara says, Rav Yosef says in the name of Rava, he went from one illness straight to another illness. So that's what we want to evaluate to see if he died from the first illness. So he never got better. So the Gemara says, well, Amad Katani. It says he stood up. The Gemara says, no, Amad Zev and not he stood up from this illness, but he went into a different illness. Where it says the halach b'shukatani, but it says he was walking in the marketplace. Halach hamashanta means he was walking with the help of his stick, so he was always sick. And it's teaching us the halach hamashanta. So who do that if he walks leaning on a stick, that's when he requires an evaluation. But somebody who doesn't walk with his stick, doesn't even walk at all. We don't even require to measure him at all. And we say that since he was never walking from his first illness, he's always going to be considered like he was. He's always considered like he was sick from the first time, and so therefore we're going to say that the get is going to be considered still a get. Shras Minam, we learn from here, that if there's a sick person who goes from one illness to another illness, we're not going to say the gift is canceled, and it's going to be considered like it's still considered to be a valid gift. So the Gemara says, yes, indeed we learned that. We're on top of 73a, that if there's a person who was a shimara, he was sick and he went from one illness to another illness, we're going to not cancel the gift if he moved from one illness to another illness. The gift remains a gift. They don't say like this position of Rav Huna, And according to them, if the Shlimara didn't say these words, here look at Rashi, therefore the role Amar Allah, it made these Sfirudim Amar Eno Choser. Now, Rav Huna's other position, where if he doesn't say in Meiti, they're going to be in a position that if he Amar Eno Choser, meaning to say, according to Rabbah and Rabbah, if the Shlimara did not say the words, if I die, even though it's logical to assume that he gave the get only on the condition that he dies, nevertheless, if he got better, the get is not canceled. Because why? So meaning to say, they say we don't apply this principle of Shlimra. Meaning to say he has to be specific about his warning, if I die from this illness or not. Otherwise, we can't assume it. Like we assume by a gift, we don't assume that by a get. And they're going to say, unlike Rav Huna, who says that the shlimra, if he recovers, it's not a get. They say, no, it's always a get under those circumstances. Why? Because we're concerned that people might come to say that there's a get after death. Meaning to say, Rashi explains, the Amad Choser, because if you're going to say that if he doesn't make this condition explicit, and then the get is canceled, also a Maimar, we're going to come to say, we'll have a get on the night. It's not a get until he dies. And then we'll see that when he dies, then we're going to see that when he dies, it's a get. So we see from here that there's a get after death. And then they're going to come, then we're going to come to allow a get after death. And they won't know that since he wasn't explicit in this case, then when he gives it to her, it'll be a get from now and on the condition that he dies, and people won't realize that, and they'll think that their get could take place after death. So the Gemara says, so biblically speaking, it's not a get, but we're concerned that people might come to think it's a get. Therefore, Sharina and Ashes Islam, we're going to allow this woman who's really married, and we're going to say it's a divorce. Is that really what we're going to say? The Gemara says, yes. In called the Mekadesh Adata to Rabbana Mekadesh. Yes, anybody who is betrothed somebody is doing it on the condition of the rabbis. And so therefore the rabbis have the authority to say that they're divorced, even though biblically speaking, it's not a get. Amarle Ravino Ravashi, and now we already had this, so yeah, we already had it back on 33a, so we'll repeat it. The Gemara says, Ravino says to Ravashi, off the Kaddish Bekaspo. I understand that you can do that if it's with money, because the rabbis have the ability to say half kabez and after. The rabbis can take the money and transfer it. But Kiddush Babia Michael Neymar. But what about if it was a relationship, the physical relationship, the sexual relationship? How can the rabbis just say that the Kiddushin is not valid? Gemara says, Shavi Rabbanon will be lost. The rabbis have the ability to say they weren't really intending to get married with their intercourse. They were just engaging in bia. So therefore, it's not a valid marriage. So now the Gemara says, so since we're going to the Mishnah, that if he makes his condition of his get conditional that he's going to die from this illness, and then he dies from a different illness, since the stipulation of the get was not valid, it's not going to be a get. So the Gemara brings similar case. He says, this is your get from today if I die from this illness. But then, she dies right away from something else. A house falls on him or a snake. Ain't no get. Then it's not a get because he didn't die from that illness. The condition wasn't met. But if he says, if I don't recover from this illness, or if he says, and then the house falls on him, raise a get. But if he says, if I don't recover from this illness, and then the house falls on him or the snake bites him, then it's a get. And Gemara asks, but what's the difference between these two clauses? So they responded, they responded that there was an incident. And what was the incident? So Rashi tells us what it is. There was an incident that happened to one person. And he said, if I don't get better from this illness, it'll be a get. And then a lion came along and ate him. The Shalcha Davar Eretz Yisrael, and they sent him out to Israel. They shivu, and they responded, "Ein lanu sheyeh get." This is not a get because the own to do shliach or asik because this is an uncommon accident, and so therefore we could not have anticipated the case of the Achol Ari, and since we could not have anticipated, we're going to say it's still a get because it's like the Achol Ari in Ranu, meaning to say, since it's not common, and so therefore he didn't intend it, and so therefore under these circumstances he didn't intend to divorce his wife, and so therefore since the latter cause of this case is not, and since we're going to say that since in this latter case it's a clearly an ones and the get is disqualified. And so therefore it's clearly not accurate. We don't agree with the latter case, and in this case it's a get. We're going to say it's not a get, and so therefore since we say the latter case is going to be not a get, therefore the Reisha is the main idea also, and so the Reisha is not a get under those cases. So the two cases are actually the same. So the Gemara says, "Ahu Gavra, the Zabin Ara Lachaver." There was a person who basically what happened was he sold his land to his friend, and Kabul owns the Misyal, and he accepted upon himself, I'm going to be responsible for any accident that will take place on the land. So Fafiku by Nahara, but in the end they diverted a river through the land, they ruined the land. So also coming to Ravina. So Ravina said, go basically pay him. Give him a new field because you said you're going to be responsible for any accidents. No, it's an unzedul. I said I'll be responsible for any accidents, but those are any accidents that I could have anticipated. But this is something that I couldn't have anticipated. It's an unzedul shliach. So the Gemara says, the Galgal Milsa, the Matar Kami de Rava. The matter became moved. And the matter bumped around. It came to Rava, and he said to them, He says, you're not responsible. It's an uncommon accident. So Esvei Ravina or Rava, so Ravina challenged Rava. It says, the more I'm on the always have enough advice or teacher nachash, I raise a get. He says, if I don't recover from this illness, and then the house falls upon him, it's a get, even though it's an unusual circumstance. So Rabbi says, no, the in the Marisha ain't no get, but learn from the first clause, like we just said, it's not a get, because it's the case of Achol Ari. In that case, it's not a get. So I'm like Ravachim Gifto Ravino Mishum Nikasha Reisha Sefer Lomus Finan to Yuftamine. So because the Reisha contradicts the Sefer, you're going to say we're going to follow the Reisha. That doesn't make sense. I'm only in. Yes, keeping the Kasha Reisha Sefer. But with Barbara Midrash, so clearly that since the Reish and the Sefer contradict each other, it wasn't taught in the base Midrash. And when Shabash, we follow the logic, it's confused. So Zilbas Shver, and the logic is that if it's an unusual case, we're going to say you couldn't have anticipated and you weren't responsible. You follow logic. Papa Ravuna Brady of Yeshua, Zabin Shum Shema, Agida Dinar Malka. So the Papa of Yeshua, they bought sesame by the river of the king. Agida Dinar Malka. Agor Milche Ravuvenu. So they hired some sailors, some ships to take them across the river. So the sellers accepted upon themselves responsibility for any mishap that could happen to the sesame along the road. Vasof is stucker Nahar Malma. In the end, what happened was the river was dammed up and the ship couldn't cross. And so they didn't get their sesame. Amoi Agura Chamre. So they responded, a couple of Rafuna said to the sellers, Agura Chamre Afkinuniwan, hire donkey drivers to take the sesame to us. So the kibbutz halacha go into the yard. You accepted upon yourself all responsibility. Also, Tami the Rava. So the two sides came to Rava. Amaru Taki Chivari Mishalchi Glimidinchi. He said he called the rabbis by his name, white geese, who take people's garments off of them. Meaning to say, you're ruling for your own self. This is an unzedul shliachu. It's an uncommon accident, and therefore they're not responsible for an uncommon accident. And so therefore, the Rava ruled against Rav Papa and Rav Huna. He ruled against his colleagues. So the Gemara says, the next Mishnah says, Lotus Yached Imo. What's the case here? Rashi says this first case is where he gave her a get and he said, you're divorced from today. If I die, then he's not going to be allowed to sekudu with her because maybe he'll have stayed with her because we're concerned that maybe he was with her and then he had to be her for the purpose of kedushin and to require a second get. And according to one who says we're not concerned about that, Rashi says it's still a problem because if she's a penuya and she's not married, then you're not allowed to be secluded. So lotus yachadim, he's not, once he gives her this get on the condition, ela b'fnei edim, lotus yachadim imo ela b'fnei edim. He cannot be secluded with her unless he's with witnesses. Alfilu, to make sure that he's not secluded with, that he doesn't have relations with her. Alfilu api eved, alfilu api shivcha, even with a slave or a maid, that then it will be okay. Except if it's her slave girl, because she wouldn't be embarrassed to have relations in front of her shifra. So during those days that he's given her this conditional get, he says, this is your get if I die from today. What's her status during those days? So Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, or under those days, called Varel. She's like a married woman in all her manners, and so therefore, if somebody else would have relations with her, then he'd be liable for chanek. He'll be liable for strangulation and accidentally liable for karbochatas because she's going to be like a married woman, and his intent is that the get takes effect a moment before he dies, and so therefore, during all that time, it's like he's married to her. Whereas Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi says, no, we're going to say, we're not sure if she's divorced. So it's a suffix Meguresh, it's a doubt, until the time of the death. And so therefore, somebody who has relations with her is going to be liable for an Asham Taloi. Because even though we say for sure we're not sure if he wants the get to take place till right before his death, but nevertheless, we're unsure if at every moment if that's going to be the moment where he dies, and so therefore it's going to have to bring an Asham Taloi. If somebody who has relations with a suffocacious ish, the doubtful married woman, it's an Asham Taloi. So the Gemara says, let's say they saw this woman that the husband wants to secluded with her in a dark area. Or he slept with her under the bed. Or we don't have to be concerned that they were engaged in davar acher. We'll see what that means. And then the bride continues, but we are concerned that maybe they had snus. We're not concerned about kedushin. So this bride clearly is very difficult. It doesn't make sense. So we have to say, what does the bride mean? Clearly, we're going to have to play with this prices. So the Gemara says, "My Ka'amar, what does this price mean?" Okay, I skipped the line. Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda Omer Af Kol Shemishum Kedushin. They say we are concerned about Kedushin. So my Ka'amar. So what does the price mean? Ka'amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Bar Abua Afin Ka'amar. What this price means is Ra'ua Shenivala, that if we saw that he actually had relations with her, Kol Shemishum Kedushin, then we have to be concerned that they were married, that they did for marriage. So he says, Nasalal Kasafim, but if he just saw her give her the money, then Choshishin Mishum Znus. Then we're concerned that maybe he gave her the money just not for marriage. He gave it to her like she was a harlot. And so therefore, if he has relations with her, we're not concerned it's kedushin. We assume it was for harlotry. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, we would still be concerned in those areas for the case of kedushin. So the Gemara says, since we weren't in the bride, said that there's a focus between Tanakh and Rabbi Yossi, whether or not we're concerned for kedushin if he gives her the money, or we say that it was biasnus. Kaman Azla Adam Rabbi Yochanan. When do we say that this whom is this position going? That there's a machlokus between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in a coming mission with respect to somebody who divorces his wife and then spends a night with her in a hotel, whether he needs to give her a second get. So that under those circumstances, Beis Shammai says she doesn't need a second get. Beis Hillel says she does. So machlokas kishavua shenevala. So Rav Baruch Hana says that this dispute is only where we saw that she had relations. But but this dispute between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is not divrei hakol. Ain't sure get him and get Jenny. If they don't see her that she had relations, everybody would say that she does not. Everybody would say under those circumstances she does not require a second get. So according to this, the Rav Bar Avua explains the Brisa. Never come on to divrei hakol. It follows the position of the divrei hakol, because if they did not see anything, then we're going to assume that everybody's going to say she does not need a get, because we're going to say that even that it was not done for the purpose of kedusha. So Maske for Abaye, midek 7 patani, but the Brisa is speaking about money. But so for sure, that was a different circumstance. But the Mishnah Beis Hillel does not mention money. So this is what the Brisa means. Let's say they saw that she actually had relations. Then Choshishin Mishum Nus. Then we have to be concerned about that it was done for the purposes of Nus. Choshishin Mishum Kedushin. We don't have to be concerned that it was done for the purpose of Kedushin. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So the Gemara says, "Command also Adam Rabba Rakana Rabbi Yochanan Machlokas Kishavua Shenivala V'Lora Shenivala Divrei Hakol Ein Tzrichim Eimenu Get." So who does that hold like? Now, according to this approach, Command Rabbi Yossi Bar Rabbi Yehuda, who says that we do have to be concerned about condition, and so therefore it's the opposite approach, because if the Tanakh who says that we're not concerned, obviously he's saying that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel don't argue about this at all, because if they argue, it would be like Beis Shammai, and it's not appropriate to say that we're going to abandon the Beis Hillel position and follow Beis Shammai. Maska Flora Rabban came my af. So what do we do with the word af? So therefore, Rabban says, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says, af lo ra'ua shenevala choshin kedushin. Even if we did not see her that there was bia, but she just saw yichud, we still have to be concerned about kedushin. So the Gemara says, "Kaman also Adam Rabbi Rachana Rabbi Yochanan Machlokas Kishavua Shenevala V'Lo Rua Shenevala Divrei Hakol Ein Tzrichim Eimenu Get." Kaman, who's that like? So we must have to say that this statement of Rabbi Bar Chana in the name of Rabbi Yochanan is not like either the Tanakh or like Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. The Gemara says, "Mai Bos Alayim." And what's her status in that day? Rabbi Yehuda says she's like a married woman, because we assume he intended to divorce her only a moment before he died. But Rabbi Yossi says, "Megarashes being Megarashes." Tana ubavad sheyamos. That which Rabbi Yossi says that she's a doubtful married. That's only if in the end the husband dies. So we see that every moment is a doubt whether he's going to die. However, if in the end he doesn't die, it proves that it wasn't a get, and so then the person was with a married woman. The Gemara says, "Uchimayas havigita, and they get la'achamisus." So you want to say once he dies, the get will take place, but you can't have a get after death. So the Gemara says, "Amar Rabba, no." But Omer, he says, "This is your get if I die from this illness, and I'm divorcing you me'eshani ba'olam, and I'm divorcing you from as long as I'm still in existence in the world." So that's what the Gemara deals with that question. The Gemara now and tomorrow's daf is going to deal with the question of what happens to her, what's the status of their relationship during the time of the conditional get. So we'll deal with that, God willing. We'll deal with that tomorrow's daf on Shabbos daf. We'll deal with it at noon today as well. All right, everybody have a shkoyach.